Hello dears, let us discuss blood coagulation today. Blood coagulation is a step in hemostasis. What is hemostasis? Hemostasis means prevention of blood loss. That is, when a blood vessel is ruptured, hemostasis is achieved through certain mechanisms. So this hemostasis events can be classified into two: primary hemostasis and secondary hemostasis. Primary hemostasis again has two events, which is vasoconstriction. That means at the time of injury, what will happen? There occurs vascular spasm, then release of certain vasoconstrictors like serotonin. So this will lead to vasoconstriction, and then temporary hemostatic plug formation, which is a result of adhesion, aggregation and agglutination of platelets. Then secondary hemostasis means blood coagulation, formation of a stable clot. So temporary hemostatic plug is an unstable clot, while after blood coagulation it will be transformed to a stable clot by which the blood the formed elements are trapped, and the hole is sealed by the blood clot. In the bloodstream, there are both anticoagulants and procoagulants. Anticoagulants, they prevent coagulation and maintain fluidity of blood, while procoagulants, when they are activated, they give rise to blood coagulation, which means temporary loss of fluidity of blood. The balance between the anticoagulant and procoagulant is something that maintains the fluidity of the blood. So blood is actually fluid because the anticoagulants predominates in action. But when there is an injury or at the time of any vascular injury, any vascular rupture, that will activate the inactivated procoagulants in the bloodstream, and there occurs a cascade of reactions giving rise to blood clot. Those clotting factors, which are in the inactivated form in the bloodstream and they get activated at the time of need, they are called clotting factors, which are mostly beta globulins present in the bloodstream. There are about 13 clotting factors identified, and some factors which are called contact factors. They are not numbered, but they are called contact factors. They also have an active role in blood clotting. So these factors, contact factors, are high molecular weight kininogen, prekallikrein, which is called Fletcher factor, then platelet phospholipid. So studying clotting factors is very important. It's a frequently asked question. So do study the names of clotting factors: fibrinogen, factor 1 fibrinogen, factor 2 prothrombin, factor 3 tissue thromboplastin, factor 4 calcium ion, factor 5 proaxillerin, factor 6 is not identified, factor 7 proconvulin, factor 8 anti-hemophilic factor, then factor 9, it is called Christmas factor, then factor 10 Stewart Prower factor, factor 11 plasma thromboplastin antecedent, then factor 12 Hageman's factor, factor 13 fibrin stabilizing factor or Lac-Laurent factor. Regarding the mechanism of blood coagulation or secondary hemostasis, there are three major stages in formation of blood clot. The first stage is formation of prothrombin activator. So there is a protein called prothrombin present in the bloodstream, and in order to activate that prothrombin, you require a prothrombin activator. So the first step is formation of that prothrombin activator. Then this prothrombin activator will convert prothrombin to thrombin, another protein. Then this thrombin will go and convert the protein fibrinogen, which we very well know it's a plasma protein. This fibrinogen will be converted into fibrin, and this fibrin forms a structural meshwork of the clot. So there are stages: formation of a prothrombin activator, then prothrombin in the blood get converted into thrombin, and then fibrinogen in the blood will convert it into fibrin with the action of this thrombin. Important, prothrombin is formed by the liver and with the help of vitamin K. So vitamin K plays a very important role in blood coagulation. Let us discuss stage 1, formation of prothrombin activator. This prothrombin activator is factor number 10, the Stewart-Prower factor. Important, factor number 10 is a prothrombin activator. So your ultimate name is activation of factor number 10 or Stewart-Prower factor. And this Stewart-Prower factor can be activated in two ways. That is through extrinsic pathway and through intrinsic pathway. In case of extrinsic pathway, the damaged vascular wall and the surrounding tissue will produce a protein, tissue thromboplastin, say it is factor number 3, tissue thromboplastin, and this tissue thromboplastin will give rise to a cascade of reactions and produce factor number 10. So that is extrinsic pathway in which the triggering factor is secreted by the vascular wall and the surrounding tissue. In case of intrinsic pathway, the triggering factor is secreted by something which is already there in the bloodstream, which begins with the trauma to blood or exposure of collagen to blood. So you have already studied that when collagen is exposed, platelet get activated. Platelet has some receptors in its membrane wall. This receptor will get attached to the collagen that will give rise to adhesion, aggregation and agglutination of platelets. The same collagen will again activate some proteins in the bloodstream. And because the bloodstream protein is activated first, that gives rise to formation of prothrombin activator, that is called intrinsic pathway. That starts with factor number 12, formation of prothrombin activator. This is a tricky way to explain the whole coagulation cascade. First, you draw a Y. A Y has a right limb, a left limb and a tail portion, and the meeting point of these three lines you mark it as factor 10. What is the importance of factor 10? Factor 10 is called Stewart-Prower factor, which is the prothrombin activator, and the right limb will be intrinsic pathway, the left limb will be extrinsic pathway, and they meet together at factor number 10 because factor number 10 is formed as a result of both extrinsic pathway and intrinsic pathway. Okay, fine. Then you know that there are 13 clotting factors. You neglect the 13th one. You start with 12. Then you write up to 8 in descending order in the intrinsic limb. So it will be 12, 11, 10 is written at the intersecting point. So you don't need to write 10. So 12, 11, 9, 8. Then on the left limb, it is extrinsic pathway, right? You write 7 and 3. What is the importance? 7 plus 3 is 10. Then on the tail end, you write 1 into 2 into 5, which is also 10. 5 into 2 is 10 into 1. 1 into 2 into 5, that is 10 in the tail portion. So in the intrinsic limb, that means in the right limb, 12, 11, 9, 8. In the extrinsic limb, it is 7 plus 3, which is 10. Then in the tail portion, it is 1 into 2 into 5, which is also 10. We can discuss each of these tests. This is a simplest way to remember the coagulation cascade. Let us begin with intrinsic pathway. Intrinsic pathway occur in 4 steps. So we have seen that what is intrinsic pathway? Intrinsic pathway means some protein inside the bloodstream will get activated as a result of trauma to blood. And we have studied that there are 13 clotting factors, and I have said that you neglect factor number 13. So you begin with factor number 12, which is called Hageman's factor. So when there is a rupture in the blood vessel, we have seen that the collagen, the subendothelium, which gets exposed. The subendothelium has collagen fibers, and this Hageman's factor or factor number 12, they get attracted. The Hageman will get attracted to the collagen fibers, and in presence of high molecular weight kinogen and kallikrein, they are called the contact factors. In presence of these contact factors, the Hageman get activated. The Hageman's factor will get activated and will become activated factor number 12. The activated Hageman's factor, which is a factor number 12, will go and activate factor number 11. Remember your right limb of the intrinsic pathway, it is 12, 11, 9 and 8. So activated factor number 12 will go and activate factor number 11, which is a plasma thromboplastin antecedent. Factor number 11 go and activate factor number 9, which is a Christmas factor. Then factor number 9 activates factor number 10 in presence of factor number 8. That is very important. This factor number 8 is very important. It is a rate limiting step because this factor number 8, it circulates inside the bloodstream in joining with the von Willebrand factor. You know the von Willebrand factor. So at the time of rupture, this von Willebrand factor will move away from this factor number 8 in order to adhesive platelets. So this separation will activate factor number 8. And more activation of factor number 8 will result with the activation of thrombin. That means the thrombin, the final form, the thrombin, the second last portion, the thrombin will give rise to more and more activation of this factor number 8, and if it is not checked, it will give rise to vicious clotting cascade. So factor number 8 is very important. And you have to study the acceleration proteins also. That means in step number 2, it is high molecular weight kinogen. In step number 3, it is calcium. In step number 4, it is very important platelet phospholipid, calcium, and activated factor 8. Next is extrinsic pathway. So what is extrinsic pathway? The clotting cascade begins with some protein which is secreted by the damaged vascular tissue or surrounding tissue. Extrinsic pathway is very simple. It should be just concluded as 3 plus 7 is equal to 10. What is factor number 3? It is tissue thromboplastin. And what is factor number 7? It is proconvertin. So the first thing, the tissue thromboplastin will be released from the damaged vascular tissue or the surrounding tissue, and this tissue thromboplastin will go and activate factor number 7, which is a proconvertin. This factor number 7 will activate factor number 10, that is toward power factor to 10A in presence of calcium, platelet phospholipid, and again tissue thromboplastin. That's factor number 3. This is step in a nutshell. Stage 1, which is a formation of prothrombin activator. There are two pathways, intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway. So vascular injury, the collagen fibers will get exposed, and then high molecular weight kinogen and kallikrein. In presence of both these things, factor 12, Hageman's factor, will get activated. Then this activated 12A in presence of high molecular weight kinogen will convert factor 11 to 11A. Then factor 11A, the activated factor 11 will go and convert factor 9 to factor 9A, and this 9A in presence of phospholipids, calcium, and factor 8 will convert factor 10 to factor 10A. So thus the prothrombin activator is formed. In extrinsic pathway, it is a vascular injury. There will be tissue damage, and tissue will release the factor number 3, which is tissue thromboplastin, and this tissue thromboplastin will give rise to activation of factor 7 and into factor 7A in presence of phospholipids, calcium, and again tissue thromboplastin will activate factor 10 to factor 10A. Now stage 1 is completed. Prothrombin activator is formed. This prothrombin activator will activate prothrombin, which is a protein which is produced by liver, into what? Into thrombin in presence of factor number 5. So that is 5 into 2 is equal to 10. We have studied. So activated Stewart power factor converts prothrombin to thrombin in presence of platelet, phospholipid, calcium and activated factor 5. This activated factor 5 accelerates the process, and so it is called proaccelerin. So that is 5 into 2 is equal to 10. We have studied that. So step 2 is the formation of thrombin, and actually this thrombin has many functions. So the first and foremost function is conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin threads, and then the second function is it activates the formation of prothrombin activator so that the clotting process should continue. So this thrombin will again act on factor number 8, 5 and 13 and it continues the coagulation cascade. Then it's a potent activator of platelets, so more and more platelet get recruited to the site. Then it activates procarboxypeptidase B that inhibits plasmin mediated fibrinolysis. So this plasmin is a protein which is actually present in the anti-clotting mechanism. So this plasmin will actually this digest the fibrin threads so that the blood flow is resumed after the clot formation. In order to resume the blood flow, plasminogen will be converted to plasmin, and this plasmin will digest the blood clot. So this thrombin will inhibit an enzyme that helps in this plasmin mediated fibrinolysis. Again, it has also anti-clotting activity, so this thrombin can balance the coagulation and anticoagulation process. It also helps in repair of vessel wall. It has growth factors and cytokine-like activities that play a role in inflammation, wound healing and atherosclerosis. Thrombin is very important. Then the last step, formation of fibrin from fibrinogen. The thrombin will convert fibrinogen into fibrin, and there are 3 steps. First is a proteolysis of the soluble fibrinogen. Actually, fibrinogen present in the plasma is a soluble protein. So there occurs proteolysis of this soluble fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin monomers. Then these fibrin monomers will be polymerized together, and then this polymer, fibrin polymer, will be at last stabilized with the help of fibrin stabilizing factor, which is a factor number 13, which I told you to keep away factor number 13 from the clotting cascade. That factor number 13 is important here. That factor number 13 is called fibrin stabilizing factor that stabilizes the fibrin polymer. Next is clot retraction. So this is a function of platelets. The platelets at the site of clot, they will shrink, and when the platelets shrink, the fibrin meshwork also shrinks, and there occurs extrusion of the serum into the outside, and this shrinkage will actually cause the cut ends to move in more contact. They will come more close, and then it will promote wound healing. It will promote the wound healing. So that's called clot retraction. Regarding the fate of clot, this clot should be either dissolved. We have already discussed the plasmin protein plasmin, which act as a fibrinolysing protein. Or this clot should be there should be eventual growth of fibrous tissue to close the rupture permanently. So that should be the fate of clot in order to resume the blood flow. Next is the experiments in hemostasis. The main two which you need to study is bleeding time and clotting time. So what is bleeding time? It is a time taken from the puncture of blood vessel to stoppage of bleeding. So that probably is an activity of platelets, right? Platelet adhesion and aggregation is the first step in hemostasis, and that will give rise to arrest of bleeding and formation of primary hemostatic plaque. But what is clotting time? Clotting time is the time taken from the puncture of blood vessel to formation of fibrin thread. So clotting time will depend on the formation of clot. That means after the formation of primary hemostasis, there occurs the start of secondary hemostasis. Clotting factors will be activated, and that will give rise to formation of fibrin thread. So clotting time is moreover dependent on the clotting factors, and bleeding time moreover depends on the platelets. That is why, see, the bleeding time is prolonged in thrombocytopenic purpura. Thrombocytopenia means less platelets. Less platelets means less adhesion, less aggregation, less sealing. So bleeding time will be prolonged in thrombocytopenic purpura. And clotting time is prolonged in vitamin K deficiency. Why? Because vitamin K is required in the formation of prothrombin, and there are clotting factors, I think 2, 7, 9 and 10 depends on vitamin K. So all these clotting factors depend on vitamin K. So if no vitamin K is there, it will affect the coagulation. So clotting time is prolonged in vitamin K deficiency. And then bleeding time normally is determined by Duke's method, which you will be doing in the practical class. So normal value of bleeding time is 2 to 6 minutes, and clotting time also you will be doing it in your practical class. As per capillary glass tube method, the normal value is 3 to 8 minutes.